The global financial system has been dominated by the US dollar as the leading trade currency for decades. However, some experts argue that this reliance on the dollar is unsustainable and that de-dollarization could offer greater financial stability, independence, and equality. But what are the consequences of this dollar dominance? And is it time for a change? In this video, we'll delve deeper into the impact of dollar dominance and discuss the reasons why there is a demand for a shift towards a more equitable and balanced system. Join us as we explore the complexities and controversies surrounding this timely and critical issue. With nations all over the world dependent on the US dollar for investment and commerce, it has long been the dominant trade currency in the global financial system. Growing discussion regarding the necessity of moving away from the current system and towards a more equal and balanced global financial landscape has emerged in recent years. De-dollarization is becoming more popular, and several nations are actively taking steps to lessen their reliance on the dollar. There are various reasons behind the need for de-dollarization. One is the idea that the US has misused its special status as the country that issues the reserve currency for the entire globe. The dominating status of the dollar, according to critics, has allowed the US to exert disproportionate influence over other nations. The US Federal Reserve oversees the flow of dollars, which has an effect on the value of currencies in other nations and contributes to market instability globally. The fact that the dollar can harm emerging nations' economies is another problem with dollar supremacy. Countries that rely heavily on the dollar for commerce and investment may have trouble getting the resources they require to grow their economies. In addition, because the US dollar is regarded as a safe haven currency, it may cause capital to leave other nations in uncertain economic times, escalating financial instability. The rising significance of alternative currencies like the euro, yuan, and cryptocurrencies is another reason fueling the de-dollarization movement. These currencies are becoming more credible rivals to the dollar in world trade as they grow in acceptance and legitimacy. Moving away from the dollar as a trading currency has both theoretical and practical justifications. For instance, many nations are concerned about the dangers of keeping significant quantities of assets denominated in dollars, especially in light of the instability of the global financial system. These nations can lessen their exposure to such dangers by diversifying their economies away from the currency. Given these arguments in favor of de-dollarization, there are still a lot of obstacles to overcome. The supremacy of the dollar is firmly established in the world financial system, and its replacement will not be simple. Any attempt to undermine the standing of the dollar is likely to face resistance from the US government and many of its friends. The possible effects of de-dollarization are a cause of legitimate worry. For instance, if the dollar were to cease serving as the main trade currency, there might be a rise in financial volatility and instability. Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, president of Brazil, has urged poor countries to create a substitute for the dollar as the primary trading currency. During a state visit to China, Lula made the remarks which are in line with the rising rhetoric on de-dollarization from the presidents of the BRICS countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Lula questioned why everyone was dependent on a single currency and proposed that the BRICS nations create a single currency to facilitate trade and finance international relations. A new currency based on a basket of member currencies was considered by the BRICS nations last year as an incentive to reduce their reliance on the US dollar. To challenge the dominance of the dollar, Lula declared in January that Brazil and Argentina were looking into the creation of a joint currency. As Lula tries to pursue a multilateralist foreign policy, these actions suggest stronger connections between China and Brazil. The Chinese yuan, commonly known as the renminbi (RMB), may gain more traction internationally this year, as the People's Bank of China (PBOC) carries out the government's goal to encourage the use of the currency abroad. Saudi Arabia announced in March 2022 that it was debating the idea of beginning to price its oil shipments to China in Chinese renminbi to reduce the impact of the dollar on the world financial system. Currently, the US dollar is used in around 80% of all oil sales worldwide. Analysts believe the de-dollarization of global commerce is unlikely, since there isn't a viable alternative that can fully replace the dollar, notwithstanding the dollar's waning dominance as a worldwide trade currency. Since the conflict in Ukraine, the Chinese yuan's importance in trade financing has increased twofold. It is also closely regulated by China and is pegged to the dollar. The likelihood of Brazil abandoning the dollar is likewise remote, because the latter plays a significant role in the commodity markets and industries in which Brazil is deeply involved. Concerns over the US privileged role as the world's reserve currency issuer, which has resulted in economic imbalances and geopolitical conflicts, are reflected in Lula's call for de-dollarization. The US government and its allies are likely to vigorously oppose any attempt to undermine the dollar because of its established position in the world financial system. The decision to abandon the dollar will eventually depend on several factors, including economic, political, and strategic concerns, even if the de-dollarization discussion will continue. De-dollarization, according to economist Peter C. Earle, has started as recent trade agreements have given competitors a boost, but the dollar is still expected to remain a major reserve currency. The use of the dollar in economic warfare and error-fraught monetary policy regimes are driving nations away from the dollar, according to a recent essay by Earle for the American Institute for Economic Research. He did, however, add that the trade agreement signed by China and Brazil last month, which settled trade in each other's currencies, is merely the most recent illustration of a developing trend. Despite advancements made by competitors, Earle thinks that the dollar's hegemony won't be in danger. He emphasized the scale of the US economy, the breadth of its economic links, and the high costs and obstacles to leaving and changing currencies. This type of change can take decades or even generations. Earle is quite skeptical about the yuan replacing the dollar, even though China has actively attempted to develop agreements with nations like Kazakhstan, Pakistan, Laos, and Brazil to use the yuan for cross-border trade. The Chinese central bank decides the daily midpoint for trade within a 2% range, and the yuan is practically tethered to the dollar. Furthermore, the yuan is not suitable for free market flows because the Chinese government restricts capital to flow out of the nation. The establishment of a currency that will be utilized as a means of exchange and settlement in international transaction, in Earle's opinion, is not facilitated by these considerations. Although the fact that the renminbi now outpaces the dollar as the most popular foreign currency in Russia, the yuan is unfit to replace the dollar as the dominant reserve currency of the planet. A venture capitalist named Chamath Palihapitiya referred to de-dollarization worries as nothing burgers and offered arguments similar to Earle for why the yuan wouldn't take over as the world's reserve currency. The Carson Group also stated that the dollar is likely to remain a worldwide currency due to its established reliability and significance in international trade. The BRICS countries' economies might be stabilized if they move forward with their plan and create a new currency. It would translate into more consumer confidence for investment in the BRICS nations, spending would increase, and the economy would expand as a result. Will India, however, accept this new money? Will it desire to connect itself economically with China, with whom it is currently engaged in a confrontation at the border? Additionally, according to some observers, Beijing may gain more from this new agreement than New Delhi. It's unclear what will happen next, but it is undeniable that the dollar is weakening. We'll continue to monitor this issue and update you as necessary. The US dollar's dominance as the global trade currency has had far-reaching implications. What are your thoughts on the current system? Do you believe that de-dollarization is necessary for a more equitable global financial system? Thank you for watching. Please feel free to share your comments, thoughts, and opinions in the comments section down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates.